Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joining us from any and every part of the world. Welcome to day 4 of the Rise Pico World Summit 2025. The 12th edition, of course, is a unique convening of thought leaders, practitioners, learners, and the spectrum in between. What is uncommon about them is the spirit to collaborate for the greater good. And what is common is the belief in the RISE values: responsible, inclusive, sustainable, and ecosystem friendly, as you just saw in the video that we had. The summit got off to a resounding start 3 days ago, and we'll see over 100 plus sessions co-created and co-located in multiple cities with almost the same number of partners and over 200 experts from around the globe for a community that is now 9,000 strong from 83 countries. We do hope you will take the time to explore the platform throughout the week. Today, I have a really wonderful set of people and leaders, global thought leaders, who are going to be with me to take off this next plenary that is going to be on bridging market access for Indian women business owners and women entrepreneurs. May I please invite to join me Mr. Naveen Krishna Yamarthi, the Executive Director of Operations IT at AstraZeneca. Mr. Naveen, please.
Thanks so much, Carol. All right, I'm so happy to be here. And then I look forward to, I didn't realize it's 99,000, subscribers from 83 countries. That's big. And I think that shows the power and how this is growing. I'm super excited to be here and share my thoughts on how important this is.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. One statistic that we have that we all know women entrepreneurs in India, especially, and around the world for that matter, are absolutely critical and central to driving economic growth. I mean, there is no one who will argue with that, right? But then what is even more important is not just growth, it's fostering inclusive development, because we know once we bring women entrepreneurs in, we're actually bringing in the community, right? In India alone, there's an estimated 13.5 to 15.7 million women owned businesses contributing nearly 20% of all enterprises. And they generate employment for over 22 to 27 million individuals. This is amazing, really, really amazing. And when I read more about you, you have led enterprise-wide sketch to scale IT transformation programs with a very strong focus, obviously, on manufacturing, supply chain. In your opinion, what do you think is the potential and the challenges when we talk about women entrepreneurs and their potential for our country? Please.
All right. So see, as you said, I've been in supply chain technology ever since I started working, right? And then one of the mantra of supply chain is very simple. You always need to have a balance. Uh, I know you talk to the latest startup guys, they say never have a plan B. If you have a plan B, that should be to ensure that plan A works. That is fine, but not in supply chain. In supply chain, where you have critical things, like I work for a pharma industry, right? I need to have a plan B to ensure that there's no stopper for patients. Now, the way I look at it is diversity brings in, not only as a business, not only as a vendor, right? Wherever you got, you need to have diversity that brings in the right balance. The stats that you read out, Karen, are mind blowing in India. Now, another thing specific to India, right? Because you're talking about India, you started off with that, right? If you see historically, it is a given fact that, they're amazing to manage, right? Women entrepreneurs know how to manage when things are bad. And I can give you multiple examples, right, on this. And as a leader, for anyone who is looking at a business, what we need is resilience. And that resilience will come from this balance driven by, in our suppliers, in our vendors. We always would like to have, that kind of diversity to ensure the balance is not mixed.
Sure. Great. And to kind of take this further, we also have Ritika Maitra with us, and Ritika, of course, is the Director, Inclusion and Diversity at AstraZeneca. And because, as we started and said, that not only do women entrepreneurs contribute to the growth, they also, contribute to the inclusive development of our world, right? And so, Ritika, both as a woman yourself, and as the director for inclusion and diversity, would love to get your points on this as well, please.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for inviting us to this important conversation. At AstraZeneca, ethics, transparency, inclusion, and diversity are at the core of everything that we do. When we talk about inclusion and diversity here, of course, while we look at what we are doing in the organization, it is also imperative for us to see how we are creating a positive influence in the communities that we operate in. Today, we operate in diverse communities. We serve a diverse set of patients. And for that, for us to be, have the competitive edge for us to do that well and serve them well, it is important for us to have diversity, not just internally, but when we are talking about, our supply chains. The reason we are talking about a diverse supplier is for us to have that much agility, that much more flexibility, that much more innovation to cater to our patients that much better. At the same time, I think it is also important for us to understand that it's also the right thing to do. So, when we talk about, like you rightly mentioned, that when we talk about supplier diversity, it's not just the women or the diverse groups that we are talking about, it is taking the community together. And while you said, 20 to 25 million employment opportunities right now, I was going through a report which Bain and Company and Google did together, that the potential for India to have women-owned, gender equality in the entrepreneurship space is the potential is 150 to 170 million jobs. And imagine the impact that you create as an organization there.
Absolutely.
Very
So
important conversation indeed.
absolutely, and really very true. I mean, that's really what we want. Is the impact is not just from a business, that is getting an opportunity, but it's an entire community that is getting an opportunity. So to kind of come back to the business aspect of this, Naveen, when you look at it as a business case for a corporate to really look at this, both from a CSR perspective as well as from a perspective of business. How do you see this helping and promoting more and more positive reinforcement for more and more corporates to take this up and look at it as an opportunity to do good?
Okay, so I think that's a very interesting question. If you really ask me, most of the senior leaders, I think we have bypassed that stage where we need to really talk to them about the importance of diversity. I think today, in today's world, we all understand it. What happens is at a decision point, we where we have to take a decision of vendors today. If we are spending so much of money in a year, there's so many vendors I work with, and and at that decision point, what are the key things that we look at, right? The key things that we look at is in a situation where there's a crisis, what kind of support I get, um, and the other one is what kind of out of the box thinking I would get where there's a wow experience. These are the two things primarily any leader will look at when you're selecting a vendor. Now, then follows your competitiveness and pricing and all those kind of things, which has, and I believe diversity, when you're diversity focused, these two, if if the women entrepreneurs can focus on this, it's much more easier for leaders like us to kind of, go with them. And I believe, like Rice, you get the right mentorship. I mean, I'm surprised with so many young women entrepreneurs. They all want to do something. I think we need to kind of channelize that. Then it becomes like, a BAU for me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the word mentoring because we actually have some mentoring and coaching sessions happening, pro bono, of course, always because nothing is charged at the Rice Peak World Summit, which our wonderful, coaches are actually offering at the summit right through the day. So thank you for mentioning and, great plug right now for me to encourage our viewers to please join in and our community members, of course, to take advantage of that. So thank you for bringing that up. And Ritika, maybe that's something you could build on? Because mentoring is so important, right? What do you think, and how does that maybe is something that we can do to help more women entrepreneurs grow their business? Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, Mentoring, in the classical sense, we just look at it as a formal learning relationship. Of course, we are talking about, access to information, a wealth of knowledge that the mentor brings in. Some of them, may have been there, done that. But the more I get into this subject, and the more I sort of speak to my friends and acquaintances who own businesses today, I think it's also beyond that. It's an opportunity, I think, for people to also have a broader access to networks in general, better awareness, broader understanding of the tools available, resources available, just have, access to that. And one of the things which really struck me was that, somewhere it's also an opportunity to keep motivating. Because, see, at the end of the day, given the socio-cultural context, etc., for a woman entrepreneur specifically to stay the course, especially, when uncertainties hit, we know how, women entrepreneurs have been disproportionately affected, say, by the pandemic. At that level, to have a cheerleader at your corner, I think that helps people stay the course and, eventually create the impact that they can potentially accomplish. But I also want to mention that I also look at this as a win-win. Even for the mentor, it is a great opportunity to broaden their networks, create an impact beyond their day-to-day job, their core area of responsibility. From where I'm looking at it, if I were a mentor, I think it's a great opportunity to, sharpen my coaching skills, leadership skills, everything that we are talking about, as future skills for tomorrow. So overall, I think win-win learning relationship is how I'm looking at it right now. Karen, you're on mute.
So so sorry. Talking about skills. I mean, of course, any of you can take this up. I leave it. But perhaps Naveen could take it more because it's about technology was what I was really going to talk about. Technology and finance are typically two areas that women tend to take a backseat. I don't know why, because I think they are the two fields, in fact, where we tend to have the maximum amount of women, or at least the percentage of women in those industries are the highest. So I don't know why is it when it comes to the entrepreneur part of it, there is a kind of a hesitancy. And so, mentoring in those two areas especially would make a big, big difference. So understanding that, Naveen, you have kind of been managing obviously tech a lot in most of your roles. How do you see, or what would you give as an advice? Let me put it this way, beyond even mentoring, as advice, where do you see women entrepreneurs needing to really, step up? Yeah.
Okay. So first thing on the mentoring, right? What happens is I personally believe, and not really believe, I'm 100% sure that women entrepreneurs actually need very less mentoring. They're mentors by themselves. Okay. I remember one of my professor when I was, doing my masters, he was saying that every successful guy will have a mentor. And there was one of this guy who raises his hand and say, every leader has a mentor. You think of any leader. And there was this guy who raised his hand and he said, I have not heard of any mentor for Mahatma Gandhi. Never any in biography, never ever. And I still remember my professor's answer. He replied saying that, you know what? His mentor would be his wife. There is no way there's a successful guy or a successful woman without discussing a challenge, you will be successful. Right? As simple as that. So I believe that women entrepreneurs, if there are already entrepreneurs in India, where most of us are trying to get a job, they're already great. I think you're already great.
How
Now,
wonderful. How wonderful. Yeah.
we're all trying to get a job, right? I think as simple as that. Now, now coming back to this question of yours, right? Um, I think so there's this beautiful book called Nudge. It has a elephant on it and then, a small elephant on it. I think what we read is that mentorship that Ritika spoke about is more of nudging and less of learning. What I personally believe is the risk appetite. If the risk appetite is a little higher on then you can venture into domains which is not overcrowded. Today, the problem I see when I go to a diverse supplier base is most of the women entrepreneurs are in a domain which has only one product line. So it's like, that has to be successful, otherwise it is difficult. So first thing, have more than one product line is very important. Two, it's okay. You've already taken risk by being an entrepreneur. Please ensure that take one more step and don't get into a space which is overcrowded. Like for example, talent supply in tech is a very common thing. I get it. Okay. But if you really ask me, if someone is looking at, let's say, on a technology side, if someone is going to come and tell me saying that I'm going to refine the data, and then I got this data model, I think I would actually first say, okay, let's do a POC. But I don't get that. And I think that's because of that one more step of risk appetite. So increase risk appetite and believe in yourself. And then that's where I think the mentoring should help.
Oh, that's very good advice, I think, because what you're saying is that, of course, I think anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur is already definitely one step ahead, because it takes a lot of courage, right, to say that it's okay. I don't need to have a check at the end of every month. I will take that chance. I know I'm going to get hopefully a bigger check over a period of time. So I think that in itself is a very big thing, and also the satisfaction about what they believe that they can achieve based on their own this thing. So I think, yes, hats off to anyone who decides to be an entrepreneur for sure. But I think this part of taking additional risk, of being, a little bit more out there, I think is a very good point to take for all our women entrepreneurs out there. And I hope you are all listening, that yes, having just a little more risk appetite could make all the difference between what you're able to achieve. Yeah. Ritika, I can see you nodding your head like I'm waiting to come in, kind of, please, please just go ahead. Don't worry. Yeah.
No, I completely agree with what Naveen said, and it's so interesting that he put that spin where it's just a nudge and perhaps not a mentoring. I think from a purely diversity lens, if I look at it from an IND lens, Karen, I look at it largely from overcoming the socio-cultural barriers, like I said. Even risk appetite, if you really peel it back to the layers, it is the socio-cultural conditioning. And to have somebody to bounce off ideas, act as a sounding board, I think that sort of is a healthy long-term relationship to build. Whether it's with an organization or, like Naveen said, if it's somebody at home, I think that goes a long way. And I cannot but also say that, like I mentioned, that it is again win-win, because see, for creating an ecosystem where all entrepreneurs, irrespective of where they come from, their backgrounds, thought processes, etc., all of them flourish, all of them thrive. It is about creating frameworks, looking at systemic changes, and more women getting into formal mentoring, I think, also opens the eyes of the mentors in the space of, what policy changes, what benefit changes, how do we create larger ecosystem and create ripple effects. So today, if you have, a group of men, women entrepreneurs who've gone through mentorship, are we really enabling them to, pay it forward in the coming years and create a ripple effect like that? So I think, again, it goes a really long way.
I must thank both of you, because the way you're bringing this out actually kind of validates the way the Rise Peak Oval Summit works. So if we have a daily thematic that we have, that's the only agenda really that we share with everybody, after which it is our partners who decide what we really have. So the first day is on systems thinking. And Ritika, to what you just said, that's exactly what it is, right? That when you start realizing that everything is about an ecosystem, right? And that's how you're going to have impact. If you have to design something, you design for the ecosystem. It's not designing it for a particular set of people. In this case, it's obviously about women entrepreneurs, but really understanding how that is, going to affect the larger ecosystem. So thank you. And then the next day is on SDGs, which is again about the interlinkages. Like, people tend to think of the SDGs as, 17 different goals, but in reality, it's a tightly wound ball of all the 17 being interlinked interrelated, right? And so again, we started with saying that, women are, when we are supporting women entrepreneurship, it's not just about entrepreneurship, but it is affecting every aspect. And if you look across the SDGs again, and so under corporate social responsibility, again, when it's a design element like what you just spoke, how does it really impact so many SDGs is amazing. If you go with that lens, you go with that systemic lens, as you said, and a virtuous cycle, because that's what happens. Like corporate social responsibility is an opportunity to learn from the community as well. Yes, you are giving to the community, but as you rightly pointed out, you're also learning from the community and taking it back to create better policies within the business, which obviously will hold the business in good standing for the long term. So I think, thank you, really. I mean, that was a brilliant way of kind of, depicting the virtuous cycle of what CSR and systems thinking can kind of link it through the SDGs, obviously. So thank you for that. Yeah. Naveen, anything you want to add to what Ritika just kind of put in? Yeah.
No, I think Ritika kind of covered it up, and then your summary was fantastic. I just wanted to you know give one personal example and also a general example so that people can probably correlate much further. Okay, personal
Wow.
example. I had my own firm, like a startup, which I grew for about like 6-7 years. Had
Wow.
good pace, and then that was acquired by Siemens in India. Okay, and
Wow.
uh, what happened is we were searching for a office space. Okay, and
Right.
all the vendors that I was trying to get, I mean, I need to match up to Siemens standards, but I can't because I'm a startup, right? And out of all the vendors that I had one girl who actually, and then I said, this is the bracket I need, but this is the class of building I need. And all the vendors I had, there was no woman, okay, because it's real estate. You actually need to go and talk to the builders and get it done and things like that. And everyone told me, no, we can't do it at this price. There was one hand which raised and said, don't worry, I'll get it done.
A woman
And that's
entrepreneur.
because I was her first client. So she had to do it. Yeah, woman
Right.
entrepreneur. Siemens comes and says, no, we can't take this building because of safety concerns. But the price was so thick where we had to actually sign up the whole building. So that's the resilience and that's of thinking that, that's my personal experience. Global experience,
Wow.
you can talk. There are entrepreneurs who said that, one coffee brand is not sufficient for the world and started another coffee brand from India and then was not successful. Now you see what happened to, Coffee Cafe Day. I mean, after KFC, I think the only other entrepreneur who started very late and was super successful, like Nika, is like, there's so many Jindal Steel. It's not easy to run Jindal Steel here, as simple as that, right? So,
Right.
I think there are multiple examples where we can do this a little more risk and a little more mentoring and then get into domains which is much more easier and
Absolutely.
focus on managing resilience and out of the box thinking, and less on the revenue and how do you run the business, right? If you kind of change that focus, I think what Ritika said, you can actually correlate and get it done.
Wow, I didn't know we have an entrepreneur in the house. Great. That was really, really insightful. And yes, of course, a great example too. When you talk about women entrepreneurs and you said role models, right? Because you gave some examples. I think that again is another big, big thing, right? The more we can have such conversations and bring more women together to talk to each other, I think creating that peer space. So one is the whole mentoring and the nudge from external, but the second is also creating the peer space where women entrepreneurs can really be there for each other, and also looking at the role model. So how is that something that we can bring into the program, Ritika? We are planning to do that, so maybe you could touch on those aspects of the program. Yes.
Right. I'm actually going to draw upon the experiences I've had over the years, and some challenges that we have observed. For example, autonomy. I think today, if I remember the figures correctly, about 20% of women-owned businesses continue to be run by a male family member. So, while we are talking about ecosystems, while we're talking about mentoring and what we can do to support women in this journey, I think somewhere it is also upon women, and I speak about this as a woman myself, that how do you take charge of certain things, right? For example, the autonomy part. then again, about 96% of women-owned businesses, if I remember correctly, are in the unregistered space. So, how do you find those local bodies, local schemes, collectives which you can be part of and you can draw so much? And like you said, perhaps a sisterhood of women entrepreneurship. And how do you go ahead and look for those resources and communities while, of course, corporates, governments, organizations like yours are trying to smoothen the process. But I think it is also imperative for, women to try and see how some of these things that today, if you want to really go after the big bets, how are you aware of the procurement process of larger organizations? If not, then how do you really go ahead and equip yourself to apply to those organizations where you want to partner? So I think these are also inherently on women entrepreneurs, and I think it deserves a conversation as well.
Fascinating. Talking about ecosystem and other stakeholders, I think again that's another piece, right? While we have corporate, and then of course we have which is in the industry, and then we have the civil society like us, how we are working with the Rise Infinity Foundation. We also need two other very strong thing, and Ritika, you kind of touched on it very slightly, is really government and academia. Yeah. So Naveen, what are the roles you think, or what do you think is something maybe that we need to also keep in mind and be very conscious about, or how do we bring them into maybe the program, whether it is government or academia? And of course, either of you could say, yeah.
Yeah. So, fundamentally, there are two things. One is it's always a team sport. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you cannot do it on your own.
Correct.
So you have to, I'll give you example, right? If you are someone who is a software service delivery partner, if you come to me and say, look, there's this niche technology, very niche technology that just got, and then I can deliver that for you. My first question would be, okay, can you really get the talent? Because I'm a big company, I'm not getting the talent. How can you get it? Right? And then if they say, no, I've got this tie up with the other firm, which is into really talent supply, and they've got a bench, and then I take, right? Because if they say I've got a bench, I will never believe, because that's not their core. Okay. So I think that's where, RISE kind of, NGOs can really help creating a network of these, and then, bucket, entrepreneurs, who can form an ecosystem. Now, once that is done, one is they learn from each other on how to do it. And the other one is, you can then go back to also influence government policies. You can also go and influence, because, government by themselves, see, I don't think 10 years back there was anything policy related to startup. What government will do it once they see, a requirement, and that requirement happens once this ecosystem forms. So I think the first step would be, whatever you guys are doing, kind of have this ecosystem map, entrepreneurs into buckets where they can help each other, or propose something. Then what happens is there's an ecosystem form which would then be influencing government automatically.
Absolutely. I think you need a voice, and you need a collective voice, right? And that makes all the difference between people listening to you or not, right? So thank you for raising that as well. And I think all women entrepreneurs listening to this, well, let's bind up together, let's work together, and of course, make people hear our voice. So thank you for raising that. I think the last part, you don't realize how quickly time passes. We just have a little bit more to go. I want to touch on perhaps the last piece, which is one of the larger challenges that, all entrepreneurs face, and that is market access. Sometimes technically you're very sound, you know what you want to do. Product wise, you have a great product, but at the end of the day, if you can't sell it, if you can't reach it to the customer, to the right customer, right, then you're not going to be able to obviously grow your business. So from that perspective of marketing, both I would say domestic and even international, because today the call is very clear: make in India, right? Which means make in India and take it out of India, right? So we want to be global, we want to be recognized global. So if we want to really encourage more and more women to think big, to think global, how do we help them to access markets? And then, of course, what do we do for a global market and global supply chains. Yeah, please. Anyone,
Okay.
please.
Okay, I can take the first step. See, I believe that in last 2, 3 years, there's just so many platforms where the market access has kind of become a little bit more easier compared to 6, 7 years. I can give many examples. There's things like Sweden, Sweden Indian Innovation Bridge Council and things like that. All they do is come to India to find out where it is. How do you tap into it? Yes, first thing is we need to know where are these channels where I can go and get into. Previously a lot of your investment used to go into your marketing. Today, with the amount of competition that you have, you know, going back to our ecosystem, most of the leads people get from their own ecosystem. Because if I need to have a business, I know someone who needs something else as well, and then we both can go and do together, right? So that's one way of getting market access. Two, you should also generally think big. What I from the women entrepreneurs that I came across, they really want to do something, but at some point in time, I feel like they can actually think big. Once you think big, the market is bigger. You know, to your point, if you want to make in India and take it to the West, then you should actually think big and say, how do I get it? Three, I think there are, whatever we spoke until now in terms of ecosystem, in terms of, let's say, mentoring and all that leads into a market access. If you ask me how much of my investment should go into my market access and things like that, it depends on maturity of the firm. If you are new and getting into a market access, I don't think it's the marketing which kind of makes it big. It is the references that makes it big, because whatever marketing you do, today I cannot have a firm and say I'm like Google. No one will believe me. Only one of my known lead tells me they are actually very good and they're really secure in, let's say from a cyber health or a supply chain, I'll go and test that product. Okay. So that's at the entry. But once you are entry, you want to scale up, then you need a lot of marketing. I think that's where a lot of people get it a little not so right. They end up spending so much in marketing at the beginning because they think that, let me do a lot of marketing, then I'll get the first client, which in my experience is probably not the best.
Ritika?
Yeah, I'm going to lean into what Naveen just said, right? The importance of networking, because, the moment you talk about somebody really talking about you, where you're not there, it really boils down to how you're networking. Also, today, I think there is a very conscious effort, like we discussed, then say a decade back, where organizations, everybody's seeking out diverse suppliers. There are bodies, NGOs like yours who are doing this. There are organizations who are putting together registries of diverse organizations. I know of organizations who are doing buyer and supplier matchmaking sessions. And all your networking that we are talking about opens your access to these forums, which makes it that much easier. And the last piece, again, as a woman, is when you get that opportunity, a little bit of self promotion is not, didn't ever hurt anybody. So, for even business owners, women business owners, if there is an opportunity that presents itself, I hope they make the most of it. And I hope they're able to go out on the front foot and talk about the amazing things that they are achieving and they want to achieve. And because I have seen in certain forums like these where there is still that resistance, still that hesitance to come forward and talk to a buyer or talk to a potential client. Perhaps with practice and with everything that we are talking about, we'll let go and share that.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead, please go ahead.
Okay, see, there are also a lot of firms who kind of help get market access, right? And I'm not talking about the commercial ones. I'm talking about, there are a lot of platforms. Off late, you can actually get onto platforms which are all e-platforms that do the marketing. And a lot of people don't know the amount of market access kind of areas that government is investing in. I would also suggest do a little research of what is it that government is helping you with, getting market access if you're an entrepreneur. There's a separate government unit set up which will help you get this. Yeah, but it might not happen tomorrow, but go register, go attend and find out what's happening and things like that. So do not do not neglect those government and the NGOs and the public forums where you can actually go and pitch it.
Yes. Yeah. And what you mentioned, I think very important, do your research, very important to reach out, very true. But I think more important is what Ritika said, and I guess, it will take a woman to make another woman, say that to another woman, is please blow your own trumpet.
Yeah.
I think women unfortunately don't do that enough, right? We always tend to take a step back. And as it very often said, and I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat something which is almost cliche, is that, a man will look at a checklist and he'll checklist two and say, I'm, eligible. And a woman will look at a checklist and she'll do seven out of them and say, I'm ineligible, I'm not legible, even though she has ticked off more points than what maybe a man has done. And no offense to you, Navin, absolutely, I'm sure you understand that. But really, that's what we need to encourage more and more women to go out, just go out on a limb and say that you're capable of doing something. Yes, you may have to learn on the job. Yes, you may have to take a big project and scramble a little bit to do that. But at the end of the day, have the confidence that, and of course, if you have the belief that you're not just going to take it and, mess it up, but you have the belief that I want to deliver something great, but I'm not 100% sure, you'll be able to find those resources. I know time and again people ask us, how do you do this? Year on year, it's our 12th year, right? How do you do this? And we just say it's because you bring resources together. Have that belief that the ecosystem is out there and people want to do great stuff together. So, you will be able to do it if you want to. So thank you for that reminder, Ritika. We definitely need to blow our own trumpets a lot more. Unbelievable as it might seem, but we actually are up on our time. So I'm going to just ask for maybe one last bit of advice or any thoughts that you might have before we close for today. Yeah. Anyone can go. Naveen, go ahead, please.
Okay. No, I think, a very exciting, very engaging conversation. And as I said, something which has been core to how I've brought up and grown. I'm so happy to see that, there are so many women entrepreneurs. Let me admit, I never thought, there's so much of employment being created only by women. I've never seen that metric, right, before. And then, I had a wow expression, and then Ritika comes and says, "This is nothing. We can actually do more." And I'm like, okay. So that shows the power of this entire, ecosystem that is being built. Um,
Yes.
I think what we need to crack is how do we, how as a women entrepreneur take advantage of the policies, the NGOs and all. I think we need to crack that, right? Today there's CSR, there are companies who are like, like AstraZeneca, oh, very keen on this, right? To develop the ecosystem, not only for them to use as a vendors, but we are committed to it. And
Yes.
that's a norm for a lot of other companies. And I think what, my only two cents for, women entrepreneurs is, be aware of all this, it's okay to take, you have already taken risk. It's okay to take a little bit more risk. And risk is not about funding and spending, but it's about more about, what is the domain that I get into? Don't get into a crowded domain to start with. Always have a second product line. I think just to summarize whatever I said, and be very bold. And then, I think, it's always that, 99 steps are done, one more step kind of thing.
Great. Thank you. Ritika, your closing thoughts.
Yes. First of all, thank you for putting this very important discussion together, Karen. I think it's great to see these conversations happening in India at the scale that you're doing it. Globally, I think we're in exciting times because, like Naveen said, we don't have to highlight the importance of diversifying and making inclusive value chains anymore. It is inherent. Everybody understands the value that it brings. And it's good that, actively so many different components, organizations, academia, like you said, governments, even entrepreneur bodies, etc., are coming together to, set the frameworks, tools, etc., right? So I think it's exciting times. And for women entrepreneurs who are listening to this, my 2 cents on this is, as I grow older, I'm starting to believe that, yes, it's only those opportunities that you did not take is what you're going to regret at the end of it. So, share that business card, go across a table, as uncomfortable as it makes you, go and have that, quick 2-minute conversation. If there is an opportunity, even if you cannot make time for a mentoring opportunity, please go ahead and sign up and figure it out. Like
Yeah.
Naveen said, 99% is going to sort of figure itself out, but take those opportunities, because if you don't, 20 years later, I think that's what you're going to regret. Thank you for having us, and great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think with such wonderful comments and closing thoughts, I am not going to add very much more, but to say, we have a very simple program that we call as simple as A, B, C, D. Okay. And really that is really a blueprint for organizations to scale up. And so I'm going to leave with that thought. A is access to markets, right? I think that's very important. You need to think of your customer before you get started. Otherwise, it's just a no starter. I think B is you're building your capacity. Like Naveen said, go out. There is stuff there. You can always do it. So build your capacity. C is, creating linkages. And then Ritika, you spoke about the, whole ecosystem approach. I think, having that in mind is really important. But the last is perhaps the most critical if you really want to scale anything, and that is developing your own systems. So literally your internal, being really very systematic about your plans, and not looking at it as something short term, but always having that long term view. So I think we really hope to work with a lot of women entrepreneurs. Do connect with us. The program is launched just now, and of course we look forward to a very successful program with AstraZeneca as well, in under their corporate social responsibility for this program. Thank you very much for being with us this morning and making it so wonderful for all of us. I will see you on the other side for a very quick event. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Network that is holding their national conclave for the seventh year. They've been partnering with us. We have some wonderful workshops on nutrition. We've got Vibha India, who's doing a roundtable on education. We have a he with she program on gender. So please stay tuned, check the agenda, and make sure you take the maximum benefit of the program, which is the Rise Pico World Summit 2025. Thank you, and stay tuned for more happening today. Bye bye.